Hello, everyone, and today is May 3rd here, and again we have another slight risk day across our central South Carolina, central sort of North Carolina regions, all the way up through New Hampshire. I'm in that marginal risk all the way up from Portland, Maine, down to New Orleans. So, a huge sort of area of potential thunderstorm activity, including out in the west here and much of Nevada up through Boise, Idaho. So um, nothing crazy today, but we do have this very sort of thin slight risk down from Columbia, South Carolina, really up through the northwestern suburbs of Boston through New Hampshire. So that's the main focus really today. Um, it's very sort of interesting setup today. Not a whole lot of instability. It really especially in in the northern regions up here. Um, Definitely a sort of interesting setup today, nevertheless. So here's our tornado risk today. Yeah, we do have the non-zero risk, across the northeast up here, um, through Panhandle of West Virginia all the way up through New Hampshire, and a little 2% risk down in Florida. Um, Wind risk is essentially that entire slight risk, Columbia up to Boston, northwest of Boston. Then the hail risk is a little bit smaller. You can kind of see there, but again, most of the same regions, Springfield, Massachusetts, all the way down to again Columbia. So main risks today are just sort of damaging wind gusts and some hail up to inch and a half possible really is the really the main risk today. Nothing serious, but definitely a widespread sort of event here. All right, so here is sort of a just basic surface map here, and we can kind of see what's causing the severe weather. We have a sort of a slow moving low across our northeastern Ohio regions, and then we also have a secondary low um, which came from sort of Oklahoma yesterday, moving through central Kentucky. These will kind of slowly move, barely move really the next few days. It's going to be kind of especially in the Ohio Valley, it's going to be very rainy and cloudy the next few days. But yeah, the severe risk is sort of formed by these sort of shortwave low pressures here. I'm just bringing in enough instability. It has enough sort of shear to sort of cause the severe weather risk today. So, sort of what we're looking at right now. And we're going to look at just sort of the radar right now. I haven't really been doing this the last few days, but yeah, so we can see the result of those two sort of shortwave lows. Lots of rain, lots of clouds. These clouds sort of extend out into central South Carolina, North Carolina, much of Virginia at this point now. It's very cloudy across our mid-Atlantic states and very rainy across the Ohio Valley, and even through our deep south where some stronger storms in the Panhandle. But yeah, it's a rainy sort of setup across the region, which may have a role in our severe setup as well. Um, we'll have to sort of see um, how much instability, how much clearing sort of takes place. So next, I'm gonna sort of compare our surface analysis here, surface observations to our model data. So we're gonna kind of focus from central South Carolina all the way up through sort of PA here. So we have our upper 60s up through much of southeastern PA, um, sort of lower 70s northern Virginia, but mid 60s for much of Virginia, mid 60s much of North Carolina, and upper 60s across South Carolina. So here's our HRRR model. So it's doing pretty well up in our northeast sections. Maybe a little warm across our North Carolina um, portion, southern Virginia. Maybe it's doing a little bit warmer, but doing fairly well overall. Doing fairly well overall. Here's our NAM. Definitely overdoing it a little bit on the warmth. However, it's doing a lot better in North Carolina with the temperatures. So, kind of the opposite from the HRR. HRR was doing a lot better up in the Northeast. Uh, not as good down south, and the NAM is doing better down south, but overdoing the temperatures in the Northeast. That's something to sort of watch. Interested to see. I haven't seen this NAM run actually, the reflectivity portion of it yet. Interested to sort of see what goes on down in the southern section. All right, let's kind of compare dew points real quick. I think that's going to be important as well. And really low 60s across mid 60s across sort of South Carolina, but really low 60s everywhere else. Let's sort of look at that real quick here. How far the 60s sort of go through Charlotte? They're in Charlotte. So HRR doing fairly well here. Low 60s for the most part, mid 60s down in South Carolina. So HRR has the dew points um, pretty well, pretty well. Doing pretty well. Let's check our NAM here. See how it's taking the dew points. Also not terrible. Maybe again a little bit um, too high of values across our Northeast, but doing fairly well elsewhere. Just a little bit bullish up in the Northeast. We're mid 60s according to NAM. Should be occurring at this time, but when we look at our observations, we do actually have we do have some 63s. So okay, it did actually do fairly well. It does sort of expand that a little further north compared to the HRR, but the NAM has done this fairly well actually. So I think the NAM could be good to look at here. Um, just based off this the basic sort of comparisons here. Another model I sort of want to just look at real quick. If you can stay here, there finally. Um, Again, this is our RRFS model here, and again, it's doing pretty well here. Again, low 70s across much of the area here, mid 60s. Let's see if it's picking up on the mid 60s. Yeah, it has the lower temperatures across the central North Carolina. So, temperature wise, doing well. Dew point wise, pretty well. Doing pretty well. Kind of underestimating if I can actually put it on the right time, maybe. Here we go. Let's see here. Yeah, again, well, it's doing well. Has the right values across South Carolina, has the right values across the Delaware, sort of Maryland. Um, so yeah, most of these models doing fairly well comparing to the surface observations, which is a good sign. Next, I just want to sort of look at our 700 millibar winds here. Again, this is the HRF ensemble mean, and just show our 700 millibar winds here to sort of give us a better idea. Okay, this is around 2 p.m. and we can see sort of we can see our positively tilted trough here. We can see a more defined sort of low pressure being formed across Illinois by this afternoon. And we can see on that right side of the trough and then the base, we can see our sort of winds here. And they even extend up to our northeast. We have a few pockets of interest here, I think, northeast, where our shear a lot more sufficient compared to our central NC and SC regions. Virginia a little bit better as you go up northeast. They get better, but 40, 45 knots possible by 2 p.m. Let's move on to the evening, 7 p.m. Um, again, the bulk of those winds sort of go off, but this sort of more developed low here, still bringing in around 30, 35 knots winds. Not really great at all. But it is enough to sort of promote severe weather development if you have enough instability in place, which we'll look at here soon. But yes, our winds are there, not great. Um, I do want to look at our 850 millibar winds. It kind of focus on our northeast region just real quick. Um, this is by like 2 or 3 o'clock, and yeah, our 850 millibar winds across the northeast. By early afternoon, that's when they're going to be the highest. Those will kind of sort of move off into the Atlantic, and so any early sort of convection that takes advantage of this um, could possibly have a quick spin up. But I think the main tornado threat would be later in the evening across the northeast section in that 2% region I had shown. So I do want to look at our sort of our cape here, compare. So this is surface-based cape. This is by 2 p.m. here. And yeah, it's very like I said, it's gonna be a very limited day with cape, and I think the clouds and all the rain um out to our west with all the clouds, it's gonna really limit our cape today. Our best cape is gonna be across South Carolina where 1,000 to 1,500 joules per kilogram. Um, for the most part around especially the central sections could be found. Some strips of 1,000 joules per kilogram. You know, up through like Connecticut, through New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. So we do have some strips of sufficient cape, but not much in terms of cape. And here is our mixed layer cape. And this is the HFR model. This is by about 3 p.m. here. Again, central South Carolina, sort of um, Delaware, southern New Jersey. Um, yeah, that's really about it. Strips of about 1,000 joules per kilogram. So our instability today is um, not great at all. So next, I do want to let's look at our FS model here. kind of look at what it shows here. So 2 p.m. It shows, a more expansive sort of 1,000 joule per kilogram section. You know, really up from Massachusetts down through central South Carolina. There's that thin sort of strip of 1,000 joules per kilogram. And it sort of fizzles out throughout the day. Let's look at a mixed layer cape here real quick. It's going to be probably sort of similar. Yeah, we're 2 p.m. We have sort of that thin strip where sort of that slight risk is at through you know northwestern Massachusetts down through central South Carolina, of where a thin strip of about 1,000 joules kilogram exists. But again, it's not nothing really too serious in that regard. So let's look at our reflectivity real quick, kind of get an idea of what the radar could look like. Again, this model have a sort of a convective bias, so it likes to sort of overdo storms, cores, and whatnot, and updrafts. So this is 2 p.m. here, and across the northeast sections, we can see those sort of Boeing cells form. But really, down through central South Carolina, there's scattered thunderstorm potential, even across sort of central PA, and eastern PA, according to this model here, um, in northern West Virginia. Possible damaging wind gust, hail core is really the main threat with all of these storms. A lot of these storms, especially sort of in the southern section, are going to be sort of pulse storms in nature, sort of short-lived, could form in clusters and live a little longer, maybe an extra hour or two, but nothing crazy, nothing crazy. And as we move on throughout the evening here, we can sort of see really the Northeast looks like with this better sort of winds aloft up at our 700 millibar level. It's going to be more supportive of better storm organization in our Northeast, really across southern PA up through Massachusetts, but more of an isolated, I think, event, sort of severe wise, isolated event, more of a scattered strong storm event down south. Instability could be better across the south here. Um, so possibly, large hail, isolated wind event up to 65 miles per hour possible in the Carolinas, Central Carolinas. Let's check the HRRR here. We'll check our NAM real quick. Okay, this is about 3 p.m. We can see our sort of scattered development in the northeast, and then again scattered development across really southern Virginia, South Carolina. We can see a possible isolated storm across central PA around this time. HRRR not as bullish as this model RRFS here, as I'll show, sort of to compare a lot, sort of bullish, more bullish on convective development there, and not as much here in our HRRR. But we can see those sort of storm clusters sort of bow out, and again, you're just isolated sort of hail and wind risk really from central PA through central South Carolina here. And that sort of just storminess sort of continues into over the night across the Grand Strand region and uh, central North Carolina. All right, try to check the NAM here real quick. So it does like the sort of the RRFS model. depiction in the northeast around this time. This is 3 p.m. Kind of has that clustering there. The NAM here, um, by 3 p.m. has that sort of clustering as well. So it's a pretty good sign for the Northeast to be aware for severe weather. I think that's our best chance. But also to mention, it also has those stronger storms across southern PA going into central PA. Something to watch as well. Maybe also a quick spin up with these, but mainly hail damage and wind risk. And then by this time, 3 p.m., we can see an isolated storm or two pop up from southern Virginia down through South Carolina, according to the NAM model. And as we move on through the evening here, we see the sort of clusterings take place, and they'll sort of weaken after the sun drops. So, I mean, really today, the main risk is just those pulse storms forming into maybe possible clusters, causing causing a severe wind risk of 65, 70 miles per hour, and maybe a hail report of inch and a half, maybe a 2 inch report possible. Um, but where our shear is greatest, really from Scranton, PA, up through Springfield area. Um, that's probably where our best tornado threat is going to take place. I could see possibly that extending through much of southeastern PA as well. But I think our best tornado risk sort of sits across this sort of region here, Springfield, Albany, and Scranton. So, but really anywhere in this 2% risk, be on the lookout. Conditions will be favorable for at least a quick spin up at some point. But I think, yeah, again, just your greatest chance is going to be across the northeastern PA, northwestern New Jersey, sort of southern New York, and then western Connecticut, Massachusetts. I think that's going to be your sort of best area there. But again, this is mainly sort of a hail and wind risk. But here's our day two outlook. I may as well kind of show it here. Really from just a marginal for right now. May stay marginal, but from Pittsburgh down to Miami, um, that marginal risk sort of um, extends southward, and there's also another marginal sort of in New Mexico there, but nothing serious. A wind sort of hail marginal, more of a potential ocean breeze spin up across Miami up through Jacksonville, but a very marginal day so far. It looks like tomorrow. Possible video tomorrow on this, but until then, talk to you guys later.